Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that have plot, synopsis, and character bios. For this issue, we are continuing our run of X Factor. We're looking at X Factor number 17 from 1987. Walter Simonson returns, and this action packed, surprising issue, because there's going to be a few surprises in this here. Love this cover here of Beast holding Cyclops with his legs while this helicopter is shooting at it. I love Walter Simonson. I think Walter Simonson was at his peak in the mid 80s. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Walter Simonson. So real quick, I have a lot of playlists, but I have an X Factor playlist where I've been covering it up all the way from issue number 1. I have an X-Men playlist where I have everything from Classic X-Men 1, which is Giant Size X-Men number 1. I have a New Mutants playlist where I started with the New Mutants graphic novel, then number 1, all the way through current. And then I have an X Universe playlist where I have everything. And it's all in reading order. So feel free to check that out. As I mentioned, I love me some Walter Simonson. I have his Thor run starting from the very beginning, and I only have 2 issues left, and then we're done. We'll have his entire issues covered in my playlist. I love Walter Simonson, so he makes me giddy. His art, his style, his writing. I'm a huge fan. So we start out with Thor here returning Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, and they bring him back to X Factor headquarters. Real quick, Bobby was in Asgard, and I have covered those issues in The Mighty Thor. Feel free to check those out. Loki needed his powers to bring back the Frost Giants. So, as Thor is bringing him, I love this with the hammer here, kind of like a helicopter. And so Iceman says, "Down there, that's the X Factor complex." And Thor asks, "Art thou certain that I should leave thee here, Iceman? You still radiate the cold the evil Loki forced from you with his devices. Even now, your form recrystallizes into ice. Mayhap a hospital would be a more appropriate destination." I love this armor. This armor has yet to be released into an action figure, even though I have pleaded, I have emailed, I have sent messages on Twitter/X, Instagram, everything possible to say I want the Thor armor released into an action figure. But alas, we still don't have one. So, and so our title is Die Mutants Die. And so here Thor was referring to Thor 378. And so we got our credits. Louise Simonson is our writer. Walter Simonson is penciling. Bob Wiacek is the inker. Joe Rosen and Petra Scotti's letter and color. Bob Harras is the editor. Bob Harras will eventually become the editor-in-chief at Marvel. And he will become the editor-in-chief at DC. How about them apples? And Jim Shooter is toward the end of his tenure as editor-in-chief. I think maybe he might have 1 issue or 2 left. Then Tom DeFalco will take over. By the way, rest in peace, Jim Shooter. One of the greatest forces at Marvel Comics ever. If he were ever to do a Mount Rushmore for Marvel Comics, he would be there. What he did was amazing. So um, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that you can listen about the contributions that Jim Shooter did for Marvel. So he's up there with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. So, all right. Anyway, Angel continues, and you see this little camera looking. I'm a mutant, Thor. I can't go to a hospital. Not like this, anyway. And so Beast, who is in his human form during this era, says, Hodge, look up in the roof. It's Thor. He's got Bobby. And Cameron Hodge says, he's iced up, shivering. What? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And then here we have Skids. And so he says, my teammates, I hear them coming. They'll help me. And so Thor departs, and he says this, then I shall away, for the Thunder God has much to think about and little time now for the concerns of mortals. That is so funny. So Thor 379 and 380, which I have covered as well. Feel free to check those out. And so here comes Beast and Rusty. And so Rusty says, where were you, Bobby? What happened? And Beast says, cool your jets, kids. Wait till we get him inside. Bobby, you're freezing. And he says, no kidding. Tell you about it in my room. And then he looks at Beast and says, what's with the yuppie clothes, Hank? Going to a funeral? And he says, listen, Bobby, I have some bad news while you were away. Something happened. Something terrible. It's Angel. He was in his plane. It exploded. We think he killed himself. And we know he did not, but that's all right. And so it's just funny seeing Iceman shivering. Killed himself. He blamed the humans for cutting off his wings. He blamed us for letting them, but killing himself. And B says his wings were gangrened. Warren was dying. He didn't care. He said he'd rather die than lose his wings. And Iceman says they cut him off. There had to be some other way to save him, Hank. Maybe the humans do hate us after. Maybe. And B says, Angel's funeral is in an hour, Bobby, but you're in no shape to go. You're ill. And Iceman says, I'll be okay. I just need help thawing out. Hank, he was my friend. I have to go. And so Rusty says, at least I can help you thaw. And he says, thanks, Rusty. That's a lot better. Lots better. And Skids says, here's your suit, Bobby. And Iceman says, Skids, you're holding it. And she says, yeah, Angel saved us. And after he died, I learned to control my force field. And so he says, congratulations. Thanks. Me and Rusty, we sort of taught each other. And then she takes off crying. Angel would have been proud, wouldn't he? Only now he'll never know. I'll go find Scott and Jean. Tell them that you're here. So I like the water dripping still from his costume. So a little less than an hour later, here come Cyclops, Jean Grey, and here's Beast here. And see demonstrators. They've got pro-mutant and anti-mutant. And so Cyclops says, I'm glad we left the kids behind. Not because they might be recognized as mutants. This circus just isn't something I'd want them to see. Warren was a public figure. Everyone knew he was a mutant, an X Factor's backer. And Jean Grey says, do you see Candy, Scott? That would be Candy Southern, his girlfriend. And Cyclops says, nope. And he says, the X-Men aren't here either, Jean. They were once his teammates. And Jean Grey, maybe they went off into space. They do that sometimes. And so, of course, that's where she turned into Phoenix. And she says, I remember. Maybe that's where I developed that knack for never being around when people need me. I could have stopped him, Jean, and if only I could have stopped him. Of course, he didn't because he wasn't there because he never is there. So, and so Caliban and Leech are looking from up a hill. I don't know where there's a hill in Manhattan, but there's a hill. And so Trish Tilby is trying to interview and actually put words because that's what the press does. They don't really interview people. They just sort of tell people opinion. And you can see that Iceman didn't like it here. He's like, Warren was one of the most peaceful guys I knew. Now he's dead. He wasn't that peaceful. What right have you to? And says his hand. He's losing his powers. And this guy says, hey, my lens is iced over. So Caliban realizes that. So he's going to bring Leech. And of course, they get his power under control here. And so they're going to accompany them inside. And so that leaves her alone with Hodge. And Cameron Hodge says, she asks him if he has a statement. It says, indeed I do. Warren Worthington used his vast fortune to finance X-Factor because as a mutant he understood our need to rid society of a dangerous element, which of course gets Iceman mad. And so when they come in though, look at this, die mutant scum. So they just are horrified. And so we see Apocalypse ship. However, it is invisible. That's what this is supposed to demonstrate. So it's got like an invisible force field. And so one of the horsemen says, this is what we've been waiting for. The fourth horseman, he looks like a drowned cat. Ah, says Apocalypse, but appearances can be deceiving, can they not, Adam Rolson? Who would see you an instrument of destruction? But you are, as is he. In his heart smolders a dark anger. I, Apocalypse, will kindle that anger. He will scrawl my name across this world in fire and blood. So nice. So who is this? Well, we'll have to wait till X Factor number 24 to find out, although most of you already know who this is. So this is a great run. So they go back to X Factor headquarters. Leech is happy to see Artie. And Hodge is mad about Iceman almost losing his cool, pun intended. And he's like, that little display almost cost X Factor its cover. If I hadn't stepped in and distracted them from you. And he says, with anti-mutant speeches and venomous slogan. Babble about the dangerous element. Maybe we ought to rethink just who is dangerous and to whom. And he says, enough. And the phone rings. And he picks it up. X Factor, the governor of California? Yes. Now let me get this straight, Governor. The mutant terrorist organization Exterminators has threatened San Francisco in 12 hours. A mutant named Richter will shake the city to the sea. I think this is Richter's first appearance, too. I'm sorry, Governor, but this is a time of bereavement for all of us. X Factor is currently unavailable, and Jean Grey slaps the phone away from them and says, what? Give me that, she says here. And so when she goes to grab the phone, she's like, hello? And there's no one there. She goes, you cut him off. What did you think you were doing, Hodge? And so he fixes his glasses here. But Jean, X Factor has had so much trouble recently. Angel and now Bobby. You aren't up to it. And so Jean Grey says, we are the exterminators, Hodge, the real exterminators. Those are our mutant or real personas. Some evil mutants are using our name threatening a city, and you expect us to look the other way? I like this, fixing his tie. We are about to go to one of the best heel turns in comic books, and I am convinced that we need more heel turns. Um, this one, she's been working on, and now we're about to see the payoff of and the full heel turn coming up. Anyway, she says, "Call the governor. Tell him X Factor will be delighted to." And then, um, uh, it looks like Rusty. Um, that but it's supposed to be Iceman, but it does look like Rusty because of the hair color. And he goes, "No, Gene, listen. Um, I have a better idea. We'll go rescue, but not as X Factor, not as passing as humans. We'll go as the exterminator. Show the world what mutants really are." And so they're gonna go get everybody, and Caliban agrees to go as well because he's a mutant tracker and can help them find Rictor. And so they go up to see Cyclops, who's up in the roof, and he's talking to himself here, and he's thinking of Angel. This is a beautiful image here. And thinking of Madeline, and oh my God, ever since X Factor #1, he has poor guy. It just hasn't gone very well for him, and so he uses his optic blast here, and he says, Maddie, no, get away. You don't belong here. They found your body. Quit looking at me like that. I didn't kill you. They did." And like, you abandoned her. Oh my God. I wasn't there when you needed me. It isn't you I need. Go away. Only Phoenix can make things right. Could save me. I need you. And he uses his optic blast. Where are you when I need you? And of course, Boom Boom's like, this guy is nuts. He is having a mental breakdown here. So he says, "You tell him I'm going to find Bobby and tell him what's going on here." And so Skid's about to tell him, but Jean Grey goes and says, "I'll take care of it." And she says, "Something's happened, Scott. There's a mutant threatening to destroy San Francisco. We, Bobby, Hank, Caliban, and I, we need to stop him. And we need you. Will you lead us?" And of course, she does her little flirty thing. And the camera watches. And someone here says, "Ha! A proper leader for a proper band of cripples. Scott Summers, teetering on the brink of insanity. And the lovely Jean hopes duty will anchor him to reality. The star-crossed lovers are the ones the others look to. And they have balked me at every turn, but Warren is no longer here to protect them. How delightful, simple it will be to destroy them both." So we can assume who this is, but we are not going to know till the very end. And so here, the Beast is doing a chemical or an experiment here. And here comes Boom Boom, and Bobby asks where Scott. He goes, "He's on the roof, Bobby." He's talking to himself. I think he's gone totally nuts. And the Beast says, "Yeah, sure. Bobby, get the little charmer out of here while I put stuff away, will ya? Look, I'm trying to tell you. Why don't you listen to me?" And he's like, "Boom, boom, out." So of course she does a little boom, boom. And he's like, "What did I tell you?" And of course he's going to go after her. And then Ariel gets her and they teleport away. And it says here that to see where she went to see the Fallen Angels #3. Now, I am not covering the Fallen Angel. Or the Fallen Angels. So feel free to go to the website and see. I'm sure maybe somebody else has covered it on YouTube, so you can go check it out. But it's a 12-issue limited series that was written by Louise Simonson, and I think it was drawn by Carrie Gamble. At least a few issues initially. So they go up and they don't see it, and so off they go to California here. So we're gonna kind of go along here. They're gonna go and head into San Francisco, and they're looking to where Richter and company, where they're at. And I like the name Rictor, which has to do with Richter, like the Richter scale. So And they figure he's somewhere in the middle of San Francisco. And here they're going to give Caliban his uniform, which happens to be the same color as this. This is it's like, sorry, this is all we happen to have, a color that matches you. And so they see Leech and Artie, and Artie can't talk, and they said, "Hey, Boom Boom's disappear. We better tell Hodge." But suddenly they hear Hodge saying this: "They're coming. No, just be ready. No, play it straight. Blast you. Don't give it away. We might salvage this operation yet." And uh, Artie's like, "Something's fishy," and Rusty agrees. And so here we go. So we are gonna kind of move this along here, because we're about to get into the battle portion of it. So, basically, they talk about Iceman here and his powers here, and suddenly this helicopter shows up, which is supposed to be where the exterminators are doing it. So they're of course shooting at X Factor, and they miss here, and so Scott's gonna use his optic blast to get them and knocks the helicopter down. And so the other one starts shooting at them, and now the building is shaking, and they go, "Oh my god, I think they're gonna destroy the entire city." And so they're like, "Where is he, Caliban?" And he says he's the power source below. So he's underneath the city, so, or underneath the building. So off they go to find it. And so Bobby makes a complaint: the Apocalypse, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Freedom Force, Berserkers, the Marauders, now a group called the Right. It stinks and I'm tired of it. Of course, we know who the Right is, but more will be done with them coming up. They see Richter and they're like, he is just a kid. And you can see he's hooked up to these things. And Iceman loses his power, so he's going to use his powers. They kind of go out of control and freezes the entire building, including this machine here. And they're like, "Oh my god, he's frozen solids." And so Jean is going to use her powers to see if she can loosen him. Iceman uses his to get Richter out. And so they go and they bust him out. Richter's like, "I tried, that they made me do this. They just kept torturing me." And so they go through. She carries all of them into using her telekinetic, and uses the telekinetic again because it's super powerful, so that she can also get the helicopter as well. So she's still holding Richter outside because he's shaking, and can't stop. The building ends up collapsing. And she is able finally to get him calm here and brings him in. And Cyclops says, "I saw what you did out there. Things you could have done. You should never. Things. I'm sorry. Things you couldn't have done should never have been able to do. If I know what it must have cost you to reveal yourself." And she says, "Scott, don't talk to me in riddles. I'm exhausted and it's freezing in here." "Bobby, what?" "It's okay. I can't warm up. That's all. It's nothing compared to what the Right did to Richter, what they did to me." And so he's mad. They're like, they tortured him. And so these guys come through and they're like, the police here, and they tell him to halt. And so he talks to them and says, "You know what? We're the real exterminators. We're mutants. We saved you people. You ungrateful bastards." Paraphrasing. And so here we get our heel turn. Turns out it was Warren Hodge, who has been planning the end of mutants since the very beginning. And so he goes, "Blasted. Robert's speech was broadcast over the airways. It's a setback, a definite setback. but a few carefully worded press releases and he will be discredited. Robert is nothing, an impassioned lamb preaching peace to wolves. Scott, Cyclops, is their mastermind, their leader, the ones they follow. And he is also the weak link. The madness will destroy him, and when he topples, we will destroy the rest. And so that concludes our issue. And then next issue, Hodge makes a move, and an explosive answer to the dangerous question: is Jean Grey really the Phoenix, the enemy within? So good stuff. This is some of my my favorite era. So X Factor number 17 by Louise Simonson and Walter Simonson with Bob Wiacek. Like and subscribe. I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.